This morning I'm going to talk about links in the spiritual chain. We are told in the teaching that we are all links in the living, successive chain that starts with the atom and disappears into the highest, most supreme light, into cosmic space. I want to read this to you again because it's the premise of everything else that I'm going to be talking about this morning, but it's also so very significant to you as a spark, as a soul, from the point of being an atom to the point of being a master and beyond. So let me read this again. That we are told in the teaching that we are all links in the living successive chain that starts with the atom and disappears into the highest, most supreme light, into cosmic space. Now I'm going to use a term throughout the talk this morning, the golden chain. We didn't title the talk as the golden chain because it is a very esoteric name. But that's what we're talking about this morning. The term golden chain is a very esoteric name used at initiatic levels. Every link of this chain is golden, which means each master is pure and beautiful in relation to every other link, forming a golden relationship. So the golden chain not only refers to the hierarchy, but also the links of hierarchy. But we also learn something else, which is that there is a principle called the recognition of the higher link. Again, I'm speaking from a pure esoteric level of understanding. This is not mundane. This is not personality. This is not the thinking of society. This is not the thinking of humanity, not in today's world. But this is our future. And disciples and initiates are going to recognize this idea, this principle from the beginning of time. What happens, as so oftentimes happens when the seed of an idea is planted into humanity through disciples, through initiates, over time these ideas become distorted and polluted and misused and misunderstood, which is where it is now. In today's society, if we think of someone who may be higher than ourselves, higher in the rank of the pecking order, we recognize that person as an individual who has a lot of money. And in that realm of money, they have power, and that power dictates to the lesser how to live, how to think, how to be, and so forth. So that's not what we're talking about today. We're going back to the absolute pure understanding of what the golden chain is and what it means. So let me repeat this. There is a principle called recognition of the higher link. It is very normal and very healthy on the path of discipleship to recognize the higher link. There is a chapter in a book titled Challenge for Discipleship, which talks a great deal about how a greater light leads. But the principle of a golden chain brings us yet another point of view, emphasizing the importance of all links. A fact that people in positions of leadership responsibility don't always follow. This is the point. It is in recognizing both higher and lower links we see that we are all part of hierarchy, the planetary spiritual hierarchy. So as we think about the golden chain, we can also think about the chain within the golden chain and the links of that chain. Again, we can think about the chain within the golden chain and the links of that chain. As we think about the idea of the chain, we see that each link is essential to the well-being of the chain. Each individual is ultimately important in the scheme of things. When we look at society today, for example, I just got a brief glimpse of the news where they're showing a video now of what happened in Tiananmen Square and how that young man that stood in front of the tank, nobody knows where he is today. He's totally disappeared. And yet he is a link in the chain. And so all of these years later, they're remembering this young, brave man. So this is important. Why? I don't think how to say this. It's like, for some odd, weird, debilitating, degenerating reason, when we come into incarnation, the majority of people, when they come into incarnation, they start out as a baby, very beautiful. And mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and aunts and uncles and cousins and nephews and nieces and so forth, we all look at that little baby as being the number one. So precious, so beautiful, such a wonderful addition to our family. Don't we normally see that? 10 years later, or 13 or 14 years later, it seems like that belief system is totally broken down. And the result is that now that what used to be that beautiful little entity that just came into the family now takes on a whole different demeanor. No longer is that baby number one. No longer does it sit on the floor in the circle of the family being looked at and smiled at and cooed about and so forth. So what's happening is so many of us now don't recognize that we're a link in the chain. Because of my job, I guess you could say it, my life purpose, and my many years of experience in the group life, I see the same thing. That if you have a small yet powerful group, let's say small of 100 people, when a group of 1,000 looks at that group of 100, they don't see that group of 100 in the link. Even though that group of 100 may be producing and manifesting and engaged in a work that a labor sacrificial service that affects the entire of humanity, because the group of 1,000 says, because we're 1,000 people, we are the greater link in the greater good of hierarchy, and so on and so forth. So, from the individual to the family to the group, to the nation, let us remember about the golden chain and the links of that chain, so that we can see that each link is essential to the well-being of the chain. So if you're in that group of 100, don't see yourself lesser or greater. See your position in that chain and the work that you are doing. If you're an individual that is from a second world country, who lives in a straw hut, who has no running water, no TV, no computer, don't see yourself as lesser than, I can't think of the name, what is it called in California, where all the computers are in technology, and it's called Silicon Valley. Thank you so much. Because we are all links and essential links to the well-being of the chain. Each individual is ultimately important in the scheme of things. Silicon Valley, I'll never forget it. Anyway, for example, we look into the group life and observe that a number of people in the group life have taken on certain responsibilities. And in their responsibilities, their co-workers recognize the value that person holds within the chain of the links of the group. As that responsible person improves within their position, so does their value increase within the links of the chain. Now, any link that is broken breaks the chain. Any link that is broken breaks the chain. Because each member of the group is a link in that chain, because they're a member and a link, they participate in all the joy, but also all the suffering, all the successes, and yet all the failures of one another. Now, I've been talking about group magnetism, the last 2 times I have talked. This is carrying us over now into understanding why and how each link in that chain will participate in all the joys, all the suffering, the successes and failures of one another. If a member in your group says, what happens over there stays in Vegas, they don't understand whatever happens to them, whether it's in Vegas or in the group, happens to us all. We cannot isolate ourselves. So if you are a member of a group, don't think what you do and what you have and what you don't have and your successes and your failures. Don't think it doesn't affect the other links in the chain of your group, because it does. The law of the hierarchy is that no one can be separated from the chain. We will see that when we destroy, we are destroying an essential link in the chain, a living golden link that will take millions of years to replace. When we consider the group life and those in the group who have certain positions of or roles of leadership, if they suddenly leave the group or handle their position in an irresponsible manner, it is in that manner both types of leaders are destroying or killing their essential link in the chain of the group life, taking the group sometimes many years to replace that link, if at all possible. Now that White Mountain will be celebrating its 37th year of existence, we've not only understand these words from the teaching as reality, but the reality is we've experienced it. So experience is, when the teaching tells us the teaching is life, it is our life. When we practice the teachings, when we practice what we read and study and research and put it into manifestation, we're going to have these kind of experiences, and these experiences help us to recognize the truth of the teaching. So we can no longer stand outside of the family or stand outside of a group that we are a member of and think our actions don't affect the consciousness of the group. We had a highly visible member many years ago that began to destroy the integrity of the group, and we had to release that person from the group. It took us years and years and years to regenerate, regroup, and bring the work of the group back into focus again. We've had so many experiences that I don't even have to say the teaching said, although that's what we consider our authority. But our authority is our experience joined with the teaching. The group life is derived from a group network, which has taken a long time to build itself, and thus creates a network of psychic energy. A group life is derived from a group network, which has taken a long time to build itself, and thus creating a network of psychic energy. Now expand your thinking a little bit to consider other planes of existence, and those members that are here in physical manifestation right now, physical incarnation, but also consider those who are on the subjective planes, who are part of the subtle worlds, that are also forming the chain or the links and making up the network of the group. The threads of such a group are built by the substance of mutual love, respect, and care. To be an essential part of the network of a group means just that you're part of the substance of that group because of mutual love, because of respect, and because of care. By thoughts based on sacrificial service, it's not about what the group can do for me. It's about what I can do as an instrument for hierarchy. How by action we can lift the burdens from each other's shoulders. It's not, look how important I am because look what I did for this person and that person. See, because we're part of this network, these links. So as such, these relationships go to raise the quality of the group. They go to raise the quality of the group. And a network begins to be built. It's like being 37 years old. We have lost several really, really powerful links, in the group network through illness, death, and so forth. And yet, I'll hear members say, this idea came to me. So-and-so would have done this, and I didn't know how to do it. And then all of a sudden, an idea seemed to just come into my mind, and I had the answer of how that person who has since died would have done it. You have to stop and think. If you had no idea how to resolve that particular problem that person who made their transition would have solved in an instant, where did that come from? That's the network. There is a thread, psychic energy, that is still coming from that link in the chain to the need of the group. As a result of their mutual love, respect, and care of the group. As such, these relationships go to raise the quality of the group, and the network begins to be built. The network connects people in the group to each other. This network is what constitutes the chain within the chain. The chain within the chain. It is the smaller within the larger, or the microcosm within the macrocosm. The goal of such groups is to provide the golden chain of the hierarchy with a magnetic network by which members of the group can attract subtle impressions. How do they do this? The idea, the impression comes, oh wow, that's great. Eventually, the group will attract impressions from a hierarchy and cooperate with its plan on Earth. It doesn't say, the teaching doesn't say you must be a group of 500 or 800 or 1,000. You must be a chain or a link in the chain, the golden chain, part of the network. And once you create that mutual love and respect and build the integrity of the group, eventually the consciousness of the group will receive impression from hierarchy and cooperate with its plan on Earth. It is from the subtle impressions from the hierarchy that certain responsible positions within the group life come into existence. Why is that? How does that happen? What does it mean when it says certain responsible positions come into existence? Why? Because their karma is paid and their responsibilities now in their life situation is as such, and their consciousness is as such, and their alignment with hierarchy is as such, that they will be given certain responsible positions. So until, I hope I'm saying this clearly, I'm really trying to simplify it. So until there is this member and that member and this member and that member that has integrated their personality with the life of the soul, with the life of the Lord of the planet, with the life of hierarchy, those positions of responsibility will not be given to the group. So you can have a group of 10 and have 3 people in that group that will be given certain responsibilities by hierarchy because they're ready. See, it has nothing to do with power, money, where they live, what kind of car they have, how many dogs they have. They're ready. Their karma is ready. It is also from the striving of the members of such a group that magnetically attracts the member into a responsible position. Such a group has become like a fiery center in the body of humanity, and thus a link in the golden chain. This is why it is the most terrible crime to create disunity in groups, and make no doubt about it. It happens. You'll have a disgruntled member over here that begins to take individuals, weak individuals, out of that group and begins to plant seeds of doubt in the mind of that individual. Plant seeds of doubt about the integrity and the beauty and the power and the creativity of the group itself. It happens. Why? Because there's a darkness in that individual. That darkness attracts the dark lodge. And that attraction then creates like a remote control from the dark lodge to the darkness in that weak member, who then has an uncanny sense of who may be going through, some questioning or personal doubts about the work of the group, or even the teaching, or even the leader or the teacher of the group. And they start pulling out the members. I mean, this again is based on my own experience. It's really amazing. Disunity occurs when a member of the group destroys their link in the chain of the group. Those who sever themselves from the group destroy parts of the network, the links in the chain of the group life, and cause psychic damage. Listen to this, and causes psychic damage to the soul of the group. When some ignorant person over here says, it doesn't affect me, they're not affecting me. No, that's so not right. Not when you understand how the links in the golden chain operate. They cause psychic damage to the soul of the group. Buddha pronounced 7 cardinal sins, and one of those sins was to cause disunity in a spiritual group dedicated to the service of humanity. Somebody want to get her a drink? Let me repeat this. Buddha pronounced 7 cardinal sins, one of which was to cause disunity in a spiritual group dedicated to the service of humanity. However, it is not only the damage to the soul of the group that occurs, but also to the person who is killing the link on the chain. We are told that those who fall into such cardinal sin lose their psychic energy and become occupied by dark entities, which gradually lead them to physical, moral, and spiritual destruction. Of course, over a period of time, mostly the group can repair itself. Yet in repairing the network, there is still that missing link. We are told that a traitor or a slanderer will never again find a chance to relate to the network. But life after life will be repelled by the psychic energy circulating in the group network. Group unity multiplies energy. Group unity multiplies energy. Those people united together can do the work of 10 people working separately. Also, it multiplies the force of aspiration, striving, emotion, and thought. Again, I can attest to this. It was within this last month I was really discouraged about certain things happening and that needed to happen and weren't happening. And then in comes a person who says, let me do this. My energy returned tenfold. My enthusiasm, my joy, my sense of thank you, for bringing that person to the group. 3 or 5 people united in one goal, in one vision, in one plan can perform a miracle. Greater revelation comes to groups than to individuals. Did you know that? Greater revelations come to groups more than individuals. Groups of people can serve the hierarchy more effectively than separate individuals. Now imagine where one of those people becomes irresponsible in their leadership responsibilities, and imagine what it can do to such a group. It creates a horrific rent in the network of the threads of the group. Each person represents a thread in the network of the group. Sometimes certain threads of the group network are poisoned by imperil. Imperil accumulates from the animosity and irritation that members show toward each other. When such disrespect and irritation continue, the network gradually weakens with the imperil, and a time comes that the leader can no longer provide this psychic energy to repair it. Now, something I'm not talking about this morning, because it's a whole different ball game, is what happens when the leader is the one that is creating imperil in the network of the group. What happens? It is weakening the nation. And when it weakens one nation, because one nation is only a link in the chain, in the golden chain of hierarchy and this network, it affects other nations. We cannot say if we have a pseudo-leader leading another country that it's not affecting us. Not in today's world, when everything is interconnected, like it or not. We are all interconnected. So how do these things happen? Things that break the chain in the ladder of the group life. Some people think that to be free means that they can do anything they want. They say, I live in a democratic country, so I can belittle and hurt people if I want. It's a free world. This pseudo-philosophy translates democracy in such a way that people become harmful. Every link has the power to exercise a certain amount of influence over the next link. I'm going to repeat this. Every link has the power to exercise a certain amount of influence over the next link. It is a chain reaction. So every link is responsible for his own life, for the life above and the life below. This is directly from the teaching. But experientially, you will see it operating. If the link does wrong, it deprives the chain of the energy that would circulate to the next link. And they deprive the link below because they are not nourishing it. Each link nourishes the higher link by transmitting the energy flowing to it from the one below. Each link nourishes the higher link by transmitting the energy flowing to it from the one below. If a person breaks this link, they break a law of nature and create disturbances and distortions in the chain of the group and of the hierarchy. So we must support each other in such a way that we help elevate those below and cooperate with the higher links that are leading us forward. When we assimilate and understand this concept, our lives will totally change. One of my goals as we continue to publish Agni Yoga Quarterly, it has been for a few years and will be changing soon actually, but it is to honor the links in the network of the Agni Yoga community by showing what those original members did to build such a strong foundation in the teachings we call Agni Yoga that it is now continuing on. It is not to forget the founders. Like we would never forget Nicholas and Helena Rourke. But how many know what those original members did that formed such an incredible, integral link in the whole network of the origins of Agni Yoga, the Agni Yoga community, that created the Agni Yoga community, that created the Nicholas Rourke Museum, and that continue, even though they're not in incarnation any longer, their work, their legacy continues to nourish and feed the movement, the continuity of the Agni Yoga Society in the Nicholas Rourke Museum. And yes, there are those links that are degenerating, that weaken the chain with poison and pollution. But it is our duty to make each link really healthy, because our health depends on the health of the other links. Many times we fail in life because we do not recognize our true value. We do many wrong, destructive, and self-defeating things because we do not see our worth. You know, when we were sitting on the floor in the circle with our family and we thought we're pretty hot stuff. We don't even remember that time. You know, we were just learning how to sit and crawl and do crazy little things that babies do. But when we come to understand that we are great treasures, beautiful golden links, we are less likely to do things that destroy our reputation, our standing in the group life, and so forth. You can no longer do these things because you find your value. For example, if you hold a certain person in the group life, if you hold a certain position in the group life and you are a responsible person, as a responsible person, you won't do things because of your position. You're not going to do things because of your family, and so on. You recognize that you have some value, and because you see your value, you will manifest value in your life. Here's another example. Let's say you are a staff worker of a spiritual group. Because you have some value, You are going to treat your position with respect. You will treat those who have dealings with the office with respect, not as your slave, but with respect, so that you can increase their value and your own. The person realizes that because they have value, wow, then the other links must have value as well. You can ask yourself, how can I do the best job? How can I live the best life? So that the higher link and the lower link link together and live a great life. We must try to increase our value, making ourselves jewels in the crown. We must say, let me increase my value so that I increase the value of other people. So at the beginning of the talk this morning, I mentioned the phrase, recognize the higher link. The higher link is your door that leads you into higher levels. You first identify with your own link, with your own personality or soul. Then you shed your skin and climb to the next link by renouncing your lower link, by moving progressively upward. You're shedding your skin. It's like a snake that sheds their skin, or the caterpillar that becomes a butterfly. We shed our skin and climb to the next link by renouncing who we were, because we are progressively moving upward. Who we were has catapulted us now to the next rung in the ladder, the next link in the chain. The important point is that the higher link is a door. It's like a portal into another sphere of life and living. Each of us must find who the next link is. It may be a mother, a father, a teacher, a priest, a master, and so on. When the link is cut, you deny yourself. For example, when a son denies his mother, he denies himself. Do you see? Master M says that any link doing something harmful shakes the whole chain. I think when people are other-oriented, as our disciples, they naturally understand this principle that any link doing something harmful shakes the whole chain. It is the more self-centered person that sees only their reflection in others, sees only their reflection in the mirror of the chain. They do not understand that what they do affects the whole chain. The idea of the chain can awaken the idea of devotion in your mind. Devotion to the higher link. Devotion is a path through which we can change our location and become the next higher link. Devotion is a process of identification with the next higher link. See, devotion is not expressed through a weak person, but one who is strong in heart. It is like a few days ago I was watching once again a video with Daniel Enton, a couple of videos actually, one in which he was being interviewed about the museum, and another he was being interviewed about some books that were being published in Russia. Daniel Enton being the former director of the Nicholas Roerg Museum. My love for this man cannot be surpassed by any other kind of love that I've known. He totally devoted himself to the progress and the work of those who came before him. He was right there carrying on. He replaced the first director of the museum in the Agni Yoga Society, Sina Fosdick. One day she said, "Come on in, take my place." He said, okay. He packed up his bag, moved into the museum, and was there for 30-some years. I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly how many years. When I talked to this man, he was powerful and sharp and gentle, and sometimes he had a mallet that he used. But to me, I learned so much from this person that I could not help that my heart wanted to be devoted to his work, to his vision. Devotion is a process of identification with the next higher link. I can speak about these things because I have experienced them firsthand. So today's Sunday talk is not just rhetoric. A person devotes themselves and aspires because they see how beautiful the next link is, and they want to pattern themselves after that beauty. Not after the personality, but the beauty of that next link. This kind of admiration and devotion pushes us to progress. So in closing, in the perception of the spiritual chain, the golden chain, there is power. If an individual is together within themselves, they are strong. If the group members are together and strong, the group is strong, and the individuals in that group are strong. Each separate link is a strength. Each separate link is a strength. And by linking together the entire chain and each link all becomes stronger and more powerful. If individual links in the chain fight against one another, then the whole chain weakens and loses power. Okay, so that's it for today. It's so amazing to me to be able to share the teaching in this way, because while I'm talking up here, it's like, I've moved into a whole different level of consciousness, and I get flooded with new ideas and images and future concepts, and it's hard, to stick to my notes and not to divert, which I do sometimes anyway, to over here for a little bit and then come back to center. But this is what the teaching does. And that's where the energy is, and the psychic energy comes from. It is so incredibly beautiful. How can we not be devoted to those that created such a beautiful foundation and pathway for us to be devoted to? It's such a great gift.